You'd be hard-pressed to find any Christian individual or entity that would deny the importance of the family. In fact, even in the non-Christian realm, most would acknowledge the need for family and family values. But are we talking about family in the same sense? Definitions are always important. After all, many people use the word God to refer to whatever idea or force they think is ultimate. They are not necessarily talking about the God of Scripture just because they use the same word we do. My father often referenced a Harvard sociologist from the middle of the 20th century. His name was Carl Zimmerman. And Zimmerman broke the family into 3 stages, from the strongest form of the family to the weakest. The strongest being what he called the trustee family, and then had something he called the domestic family, and the lowest form of family organization he called the atomistic family. We do think in terms of these stages, even though we don't use the term, so we ought to distinguish them in our minds so we can talk about the family in precise terms. I'll start with the weakest definition of the family, that is the atomistic family. The atomistic family is one seen as a temporary convenience, a pragmatic solution to child rearing and economics. But in an atomistic family, the convenience is always outgrown. Children are said to naturally rebel. The apron strings must be cut. Children go away and do their own thing. Very often they do their own thing before they even leave home. Eventually, the individual feels that he needs to be freed from this temporary family environment. At its worst, the atomistic family means some move out into a pseudo-family group like gangs or the pimp-prostitute relationship or the abusive spouse. In an atomistic family, the spouses also see the family as no more than a convenience. As long as they're happy and fulfilled, marriage is fine. But when they're not happy and fulfilled, it's time to end the relationship. The atomistic family is okay with many who speak of family. They merely want this atomistic family to be a more pleasant place. A bit more conventional is the idea of the domestic family. This is the traditional family many know. It's the happy home of our romantic imaginations. It's full of traditions and get-togethers, but in reality everyone goes their own separate way. Sometimes this view is held up as a biblical model because we don't see the same abuses in the domestic family as in the atomistic family. An improper view of the family in terms of this view, however, emphasizes the authority of the husband-father, far removed from any greater accountability. In a domestic family, the core family shrinks and new domestic families emerge, each living very separate lives. There's no real continuity. The strongest form of family is the trustee family. If you recall, Hebrew society was tribal in its organization. A tribe is an extension of family. So the family in Hebrew society was the most important unit, not just socially, but politically and economically. In a trustee family, there's authority. Obviously, there's authority over children. Their education is under the control of the family. The religious training is established in the family setting. This is why progressive educators early targeted education as a key to controlling the social order. They assumed control of education in order to create the kind of citizen they thought best. By controlling education, they came to control society. This is why we still see statements from the state that the state is the ultimate authority over the child and parents. They've assumed authority over all members of the family, not just the children. Well, in a trustee family, there's authority also over property. In the Bible, land outside the city walls could not be permanently sold. You recall the story of Naboth. Naboth was murdered because the king of Israel wanted his land, which lay right outside the city walls. Naboth refused to sell to the king of Israel, and so he was murdered. The land was not state-owned in Israel, but neither was it truly privately owned in the sense that we use the term private property. It was really family property, and property was held in trust. It was the obligation, the moral duty of the family to transfer property and wealth to the next generation. Now, the state and or national government says it's the primary heir, that you have to pay the state its inheritance tax before you are said to own anything. You're limited even to how much you can give away in your lifetime without it being taxable. The family was also the authority over welfare. Obviously, children are subsidized for many years, but it was once common for people to live with family in their old age. In the New Testament, we see this as well. Paul said, "He that doth not care for his own despiseth the faith, and is worse than an infidel." Notice it doesn't just say that his behavior is deplorable. It says he despises the faith. In other words, the measure of our faithfulness to God isn't in the theology we can quote. Our faithfulness is measured in our obedience. How do we live the Christian life, including caring for our own families? The trustee family is concerned with passing on more than a name or a bloodline. They see their assets as the cumulative blessing of God over many generations and something to be passed on to the next generation. They therefore see marriage as a covenant in this larger purpose of preserving and developing not just economic capital, but spiritual capital. They see the family as empowered by God and their duty to maintain that power for godly dominion. In short, the trustee family sees itself not in terms of the headship of a parent or grandparent, but in terms of the family's responsibility under a greater calling, a greater purpose, and a greater authority than that of the individual. If you'd like to study this subject more, I would recommend you order a copy of The Biblical Trustee Family, which is subtitled Understanding God's Purpose for Your Household. It's written by one of our staff members, Andrea Schwartz, and it's available from chalcedon.edu.